All right, I'm just going to do a real quick little episode. I've been wanting to do some episodes about video game music more. I got one about the Streets of Rage 3 soundtrack I'm going to do that'll be kind of cool, but it's kind of a lot of work to put that one together. So this one I'm just going to play some music. First off, this is Phantasy Star 2 for the Sega Genesis. I remember me and my friend Terry both got a Genesis the same Christmas, and I remember he lived down the street from me. He called me up. And he's like, dude, it's so amazing. I got a Sega Genesis. Like, I got a Genesis. I got Phantasy Star 2 because we were big fans of Phantasy Star 1 on the Master System. That's how we met, actually, was because we were in the school library. And one of us, I don't remember who, but overheard the other talking about some Sega Master System game. And man, that'll make you instant fucking Battlefield friends. Just like, you have a Master System? I have a Master System. Holy fuck, no one has a Master System. Dude, let's be friends. And we were friends from then on. So he got the Genesis with Phantasy Star 2, and I was like, whoa, cool. And in the meantime, I was waiting for my parents to come downstairs and get Christmas rolling. And there was this one box that I just like carefully peeled some tape away and pulled back just enough of the wrapping paper to see like the black grid. And I called them back and I was like, man, I think I got a Genesis also. Holy shit. And then it turns out it did. And we got ours with Sonic the Hedgehog. So I called them back and was like, bro, I got a Genesis also. Yeah, we're Genesis buddies, Genesis friends. We've upgraded our Master System friendship to Genesis friendship. And he was initially kind of like, oh man, you got Sonic? Like, oh, wicked. But at the end of the day, I think he probably got the better end of the deal. I mean, both games had their problems. Phantasy Star 2 really was very long, very grindy, very old school. I never actually finished it. I got all the way to the Ice Planet. But Sonic the Hedgehog, highly overrated. I mean, let's be serious here. Compared to Mario, Sonic was a pile of horse shit. It was fucking, all three buttons made you jump. It just wasn't really that complex or interesting of a game. But got a lot of good memories of the Sega Master System. In both cases, Genesis I mean, but in both cases, I think it was kind of cool because I later got a Nintendo and I never technically had a Super NES, but there was always one around. Everyone had it. So I got to have all the experiences of Nintendo and Super Nintendo, but I also got these side experiences of all these Sega games that a lot of people my age didn't get because they didn't have those. So I don't know, I like that. I'm not like a Sega guy, but when I think back to being a kid, Sega comes to mind. And I'm glad I got that. I'm glad I got that extra little layer. But the Phantasy Star 2 music, it's really unique, really odd. I really love the sound chip in the Sega Genesis. It sounds so cool. And the music for Phantasy Star 2, it's like really just kind of lonely feeling. And it's very strange, but it's really cool. I like it a lot. Here is some music from Phantasy Star 2. Man, yeah, like, I wouldn't even necessarily say that I'm into 8-bit music so much, like modern musicians that do video game music. I don't know that I really give a shit. It really has to be stuff that I knew as a kid for it to stick in my head. Because it's just that nostalgia kick and that just remembering being a kid. Like, man, that music really reminds me of just really specifically of like my friend Terry's old bedroom. Man, that was a weird thing too. This apartment that he lived in, he later moved out, and I'm like, well, okay, he moved and I'll never be there again. And then just coincidentally, years later, I was hanging out with my cousin Dan and some friend of his, and they're like, hey, let's hop in the place real quick and grab some beer or something. And it was the exact same apartment that Terry's family used to live in. And it was just fucking crazy. I'm just like, whoa, like I'm back here. How fucking weird is that? Like, because I've thought about that before. Like my old friend Adam, like he had this really cool house with all these weird closets that were under the awning of the house that had little spy holes so you could spy into his sister's bedroom and all this shit. And I'm like, man, that house was so cool, but I'll never be able to go in that house again. Like, I guess if you lived in an old house, maybe you could get away with like, hey, it's my old house, can I come in or whatever, if you're a fucking weirdo. But hey, this is my friend's old house, can I come in and poke around in your weird closets, your big cool long closets that ran the length of the house? I don't think they'd be into that. Man, I wonder now too, looking back, how did anyone afford these places? Like my friend Adam's house, like it was a whole house, and it was a single mom who raised Adam and his sister. Wonder how that all fucking worked. I think she worked at a hospital or something, but man, I don't know how you rent a whole house. Although that being said, when I lived in Fredericton, we rented a whole house for like a fucking $1,000 a month, so I take it back. Anyway, the next game I'm going to play is Maniac Mansion for the Nintendo. Man, I loved this game. I got it, we used to go on these family trips. I'm from New Brunswick, Canada, so the closest state to us is Maine, and we would take these trips down to Bangor. Because back in the 80s, the economy of the two countries was so wildly different, and just prices were so cheap. Like our money was worth less, but the prices were so much cheaper in the States that it was worthwhile to hop in a car and go to the States for the weekend just to shop, just to buy shit. That is certainly not the case anymore. Our money's like worth the fucking same. It's very bizarre. But yeah, back then we would just like go down there and get games. I remember, I don't know if it was all in this same trip, but I remember getting Rockin' Ball. It's this really weird pinball game that had all these pinball related sort of sports games and stuff. It was very strange. I got a copy of River City Ransom down there, which of course is fucking awesome. And Maniac Mansion. And Maniac Mansion has really cool music. It's like you can tell that it was a North American game and not a Japanese game just because it has just the music, something about the music, or even just the style. Like it's surprising how many different styles you could squeeze out of the Nintendo. Like you get like Super Mario music sounds a lot different than Wizards and Warriors music, which I guess that was also American or British with Rare. And like the Maniac Mansion music, there's no other music that sounds like this. It just sounds so unique. But it was such a good game too. Like it was before the LucasArts style of making sure the game was always winnable. You could totally fuck yourself, but that didn't bother me, except for there was like 6 endings, and at least 3 of them were predicated on having stamps. So you could mail different things. You could mail manuscript, or you could mail a demo tape, and it was really hard to get those stamps. If you fucked up, then the stamps came off the envelope if you didn't steam them off properly, and then that was it. They were unusable. That was a shame. That's the one design note that I wish had not been that way in Maniac Mansion. The fucking stamps should have been much easier to use, or you shouldn't have become unusable. That really sucked, but such a good game, and I really like the Nintendo version. I even got the early release where you could put the hamster in the microwave. Good times, man. Just good fucking times. That game rules. So, here is some Maniac Mansion music from the Nintendo version. All right, I was going to try to switch it up more and not just play a bunch of Nintendo stuff, but I got to play this one. So this is Faxanadu. I've always been obsessed with the music from this game. It's a medium obscure game. It was published by Nintendo, but it wasn't a Nintendo game. Turns out it's like this series of role-playing games that was called Xanadu that I think were just for Japanese PCs. And so that's why this is called Faxanadu, because it's Famicom Xanadu. And they made it into a side scroller, and it was pretty weird because it had all these RPG elements and just weird shit like you couldn't duck. Kind of a strange game, and it's kind of famous for how when people talk, they won't stop blinking their eyes constantly, and it's very off-putting and weird looking. But it's a kind of a fun game. I didn't mind it. It's not the best, but it's cool. It's like one of those little side games that I don't know if it's worth going back to, but I'm glad I played it at the time. And the music is just awesome and cool. I mean, not every fucking track, but in general, just really good, man. Like, again, I wonder, like, if I had never played this game as a kid, would I like these songs? Like, I probably not. It really is almost totally nostalgia based for me, but the music in Faxanadu, fucking sweet. So let's listen to that, and then I'll find one more thing, and we'll wrap up this little episode, this little musical episode of the Video Game Podcast. Okay, one last game. I'm going to play Warriors of the Eternal Sun for the Sega Genesis, which I don't even remember most of the music. I just remember that the opening song was so good. Like, it doesn't fit at all for a Dungeons and Dragons game, but it totally fits. It's just catchy. It's totally catchy. And I loved that game. Like, I never really played the Baldur's Gate games and stuff, but I think it was that same sort of basic formula. And I remember when it came out, I was like 13 or 14, and man, I must have been such a fucking annoying kid to deal with, where I wanted this game for my birthday, but it was too new and too expensive. I had rented it and just fucking really got into it. But I had this dumb idea in my head, like, oh, but it'll go down in price pretty soon, so let's just wait till it goes down in price and then get it then. And it just didn't go down and didn't go down, and finally it had been long enough since my birthday that my mom just got me something else, and it's like, look kid, here's a birthday present, stop being a weirdo. And I was all upset, like, oh, you ruined my plan, I wanted this game. And she's like, shut up, you little fucking bitch, fuck you. God damn it. I remember I read somewhere in this one psychology book that it's like a little exercise about your past self, that you imagine yourself at different ages, and you imagine giving that kid a hug. You know, it's like supposed to be a way to self-actualize and, what's the word, just be accepting of yourself or whatnot. Man, when I think back to particularly some of my teenage years, that's a very hard thought. So here's Warriors of the Eternal Sun for the Sega Genesis. I hope you enjoyed listening to some video game music with me. I think I'll sprinkle these episodes in here and again, because I like me some nostalgic video game music. KeithCourage.com. Thank you very much. Adios. Man, just as a quick postscript, I'm listening to this fucking Warriors of the Eternal Sun music. That is some rockin' fucking music, man. That makes no sense for a Dungeons and Dragons game. Like, that shit is fucking just... That's fucking good, man. Genesis was kind of good at that, like fake rockin'. I'm gonna have to fire up an emulator and play that game again because I loved it so much. Alright, cool. Thanks for listening. Adios.